In this episode, I want to talk about the theory of mind, which is a complicated way of basically saying that as a human, I not only understand what's going on for me, but I can appreciate that there is something else that is going on for you, and that my mind and your mind are actually different. And so I can appreciate, for instance, that while I love this particular rock band, I can appreciate that you might have a completely different view about that rock band. I get that sense that your mind and my mind are two different things, and we'll think different things about stuff. So that's essentially a kind of very simplistic way of describing the theory of mind. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because what it leads us to have to do then in order to navigate the world is that given that we're aware that other people are thinking different things than we're thinking, one of the things we have to do to navigate our social world is to try and predict and guess and come up with an idea about what other people actually are thinking. And especially what other people might be thinking about us. So when I'm in conversation with somebody and I'm trying to gauge how well it's going, a part of me will be thinking, I wonder what this other person is thinking about me right now. And I'll have to come up with guesses. And those guesses will modify my behaviour. So I might be watching the person closely as I'm talking, and I'll see their eyes narrow, and I might say to myself, oh, this person thinks I'm a fool. And based on that guess that I have about what the other person is thinking, that will then modulate my own behaviour. Maybe I'll dry up and, I'll kind of quickly draw short the conversation and maybe excuse myself and go and talk to somebody else. Because after all, I don't want to be there in the company of somebody who thinks I'm a fool. And yet it was all a guess. And in fact, what we know about the accuracy of those guesses means that that information which drives our behaviour, that sense of what we think that the other person is thinking about us, the accuracy of that is astonishingly low. So my guess about what another person is thinking is accurate about 20% of the time. So out of every 5 guesses that I have, 4 of them will be completely wrong. And yet those 4 will still have a lot of power to modulate what I do. My brain is there trying to predict what the other person is thinking about me. And yet 4 out of 5 of those guesses are wrong. And as my brain is trying to predict what the other person is thinking about me, my guess about what they're thinking about me will change my behaviour accordingly. And yet I'm changing my behaviour accordingly based on completely faulty information 4 times out of 5. Now, when it comes to people that we're close to, the people that we know best, the good news is that our accuracy does go up, as you'd expect. You might well have been thinking, well, that's 20% for anybody, but what about somebody that we're really close to, like a partner, for instance? How accurate are our thoughts about what the other person is thinking? Well, it does go up, but it doesn't actually go up very much. It goes up from 20 to 35%, which is quite a leap, but it still means that the overwhelming majority of our guesses about what our partners, even the people that we're very closest to in the world, are thinking are inaccurate. They're wrong. 2 out of every 3 of our guesses about what we're thinking, what the other person rather is thinking about us, are completely inaccurate. And yet, once again, those guesses which represent our brain trying to predict what the other person is thinking about us, even though they're wrong most of the time, those predictions, even the incorrect ones, modulate our behaviour, change the way we react, change whether we edit ourselves or feel hurt or get cross or decide to spend some time alone, or even decide to spend some time with them, or make a suggestion about what we should do for their birthday, or whatever it happens to be. These guesses are things that lead us to change our behaviour. And the changes that we're making is based on false information 2 times out of 3. And so it's interesting, isn't it, that even though we have this sense that our minds are separate, what we don't have is that good a way of predicting what it is that those other minds are thinking. The best that we can do is guess. And our best guess are generally wrong. Even when they're the person who is closest to us in the world, they're generally wrong. And so having this theory of mind is useful, but at the same time, relying on the guesses of the brain can lead us in some wonky directions most of the time. And it's an interesting reminder, I suppose, of what it is that we don't know. Because what we can never know is what another person is thinking. Because we have access to our own minds, but we don't have any access to theirs. All we can really do in order to be as accurate as possible is to maybe check things out. Because what emerges from that data, that 20% of our guesses are right and 80% are wrong, and even with a partner that 35% is correct and 65% is wrong, it kind of reveals in that data that all we're really doing when we're imagining what other people are thinking is we are generating stories. They're not facts, they're not information, they're just stories. And so it's a good reminder that that's all they are. Because if we attach to them as fact, we'll have a very different response to if we attach to them as stories. And if indeed they are just stories, perhaps we'll be more inclined to check them out. To say, I'm telling a story that you're thinking this. Because 4 times out of 5, or 2 times out of 3 if it's your partner or somebody close, that story is going to be way, way off. And so, knowing this information might just give us a little prompt to check some of this stuff out. Because if we don't check it out, then the vast majority of the time, even when it's somebody close to us, we're going to be way off beam. And then we're going to be changing our behaviour, limiting ourselves, doing different actions, making decisions based on information that is, more times often than not, completely way off. And so if you find this idea helpful, then spread it around, share it on social media and all that kind of stuff. You can subscribe free to the podcast wherever you get them. You can go to sliceoftherapy.com if you prefer them in video form, and you can work with me direct. I'm Alun Parry from the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice, and you can find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.